Hello. Oh dear, okay. This closet does not stay closed, so if it opens, it's either the cats or ghosts or something else. Demons. Hi, you are watching the Christiana 321. I am the Christiana, and I'm wearing a blazer that is a little too small. This is 4chan. Java is licking herself off camera, which is very polite, maybe a little bit noisy. So today's video comes to you in two parts. Part number one, we're going to talk a little bit about the history of advice channels, or advice columns and whatnot. Part number two, we're going to give some advice. If you like my new lighting, it's a ring light. My biggest fan got it for me, my dad. I don't know if he is a fan of this YouTube channel. I don't know if he watches this YouTube channel, but he's a fan of me, and he supports me in all of my endeavors. Sometimes financially, but not really since I've been an adult. What were we talking about? So I'm just popping back in here in case I forgot to mention in the earlier clip. I will put this back in near the beginning, that although I talked about Dad being my #1 fan and supporter because he bought this ring light that you're now seeing, that's fun. So even though I talked about my dad being my #1 fan and supporter, he and my mom are tied. She's great, and she's also my #1 supporter, and I love both of them equally. If it gets weird, you can just turn off the video, that's fine. The first advice column that we know of, that we a lot of times credit as being the first advice column, was not really an advice column, in my opinion, but it was in the 1690s. My sources will be in the description below. So in a periodical called the Athenian Mercury. And back then, I mean, you'll see when we go through some of our questions later on, it was basically like Google. So it was ways for people to reach out, and if they didn't have, you know, access to a huge library, they could ask questions. Some of them were about science or philosophy, and people at the newspaper who have better research resources than people normally did back then, they still kind of do, they would ask those types of questions. Some of them were about advice or just about the world and life in general. And then as time went on, these kind of ask a newspaper or a magazine, whatever you want, kind of articles became more popular. And in the 18th century and the 19th century, they became more popular for women, or feminine type questions. You know how the world was back then. Gender was a lot more binary than it is now, so you can imagine when I say feminine type questions, but they weren't advice and relationship columns like we know nowadays. They were about sewing and homemaking and the best apple tart recipe. And then life moved forward, so there were some questions around World War I, a little bit before then. That's where we start seeing the turn, where it becomes more relationship-y. Sorry, I'm distracted by my cats. So there were a lot of different advice columnists that some of them would specialize in particular topics, but some became famous. I think you probably know Dear Abby, but there's one that was Beatrice Fairfax was a popular one in the New York Evening Post. But so over time that evolved and became more popular. Then they were in a lot of different magazines covering a lot of similar topics, if I do say so myself. And in modern days, you see them pop up as advice podcasts even, When I was in middle school and high school, there were radio stations that you could call in for advice. And with those radio stations, I remember like you were calling kind of to get the radio host's opinion and advice, but then sometimes other listeners would call in and also offer advice based on their experiences. And we see evidence of that being the case going back to the first newspapers. These people who are writing in about science and philosophy and life weren't just asking one advice columnist. They were putting it out there and seeing like maybe that advice columnist has one opinion on philosophy, but maybe a philosopher of that day or somebody on the cutting edge of science will see the question and write in the next week and be able to answer the question more fully or from a different perspective. So these days we've got advice podcasts. I listen to If I Were You with Jake and Amir and Dear Hank and John. I think those are the only two like advice kind of ones that I listen to, and sometimes, more so in Dear Hank and John than on If I Were You, other people will write in after your question's been answered and give advice on their area of expertise. So yeah, it's just really cool that we've come so far, but also not really. Like if you listen to Dear Hank and John, with the Green brothers, if you weren't aware that they had a podcast, they do. Go give them a listen. Tell them I sent you. My viewing audience is about 1 billionth of 1%, I'm guessing, of what their average podcast gets. If you listen to Dear Hank and John, they do answer more than just relationship questions. I feel like for them, especially, they get into a lot of sciencey questions because Hank Green is the founder, I guess, of SciShow, and the two of them together ran Crash Course for a while. I think John has stepped back, but they both have very big followings and are known for being smart. So in theory, we could be asking them all kinds of relationship questions too, but the majority of them have to do with school or literature or science or AFC Wimbledon, which I just think is really neat. I'm going to change out of my studious kind of clothes and I'll be right back. You're gonna have to get up. Hi, baby. Okay, look. Hi. Welcome back. I know you're at a different angle, but that's because I touched the camera to turn it on and off. Now here's the thing. Whenever I'm watching people with ring lights who also have glasses, I always want them to like angle their faces and everything so I can't just see the little dots of the ring light the whole time. And I figured it would be really easy to do that. And I'm realizing now I didn't understand. Which is kind of a great way to start this off, is that everybody's coming at life and at issues from their own perspective, and you can't always see the full struggle, especially in advice columns. Like, you gotta write the question so that it's short enough that it can be printed and still have enough room for the answer. So, like, by definition, you're gonna have to leave some stuff out. Now, some of these questions I did read ahead of time, but these are reflective of that first advice column from 1690. And I just want to see, like, how have things changed? Are these questions, like, do we have answers to these questions? I did not read the answers to these questions, which were also printed in the article in The Atlantic that I've got linked below. This does have wine in it. And The last thing before we get started on answering some of these questions, thank you to my other biggest fan. Oh, alright, so I lied. This video is coming to you in 3 parts because someone who is very cute and fluffy bumped my drink and there was a stain. I had not taken a sip yet, which is how I know that it was not just like me being sloppy. I was getting ready to say thank you to my next biggest fan after my dad and the cats, and Hazel and my mom, and maybe tied with my sisters. I'm not sure if they watch these videos. So this video is inspired by a YouTuber. I need a better setup. This is just like an empty cardboard box. It could easily be knocked over. So thank you for the inspiration to, I don't know if I'm allowed to say his alter ego on here yet, but this part of the video is going to be uncut starting from this point forward unless I spill the wine again, and then we'll have to deal with that situation. Okay. Alright, so questions from the 1690s. Why is thunder more terrible in the nighttime? And that's because it's dark outside. It's not actually any different. It just feels scarier because you can't see anything. And the lightning is more pronounced, so you have that anticipation of the thunder coming. So that's why. Question number 2. In what space of time should I make names for these people? No, I don't know enough people from the 1600s. I could do Shakespearean names. I don't know enough Shakespearean names. Okay, so we're not going to do that. And since I'm copying one of my biggest fans, we're just going to leave that whole train of thought in. I'm not nervous about it. Are you? You should be. Okay. So, in what space of time do you think the whole mass of blood circulates through the body? So I assume this means like you got a blood cell. How long does it take if you go the longest path from the heart back to the heart? And now, I'm not a doctor. Go follow like Dr. Glocker or the Pretty Blonde Doctor, or the Female Pretty Blonde Doctor, or the other pretty dude doctor, blonde dude doctor. There's lots of doctors on YouTube is what I'm getting at, and for some reason YouTube keeps like showing me their shorts, not like their clothing shorts, you know, YouTube shorts. I'm so sorry. I still haven't had a sip of this. I should have a sip of this. Not bad. Okay. So, the longest path from the heart to, like, I guess probably your toes or something and back. I'm gonna see if I can feel it happening. Alright? 30 seconds. Oh, here's a good one. It's a little bit longer, so I think we might be getting to the advice questions, not the Google questions. My father had a dog, which he kept a great many years, in which time I had 2 brothers and 1 sister that died. I'm so sorry. Though this guy's probably dead as well. And it was observed that this dog, always the day before they died, the brothers and sister, went about 100 yards from the house and laid his nose towards the church where they were all buried, and howled in a strange, hideous manner for an hour or more at a time. And when my father died, he did the same. Now it seems as if the dog had some prophetic, or what to call it, knowledge in these matters. Now here's the thing. So, the dog, the day before his brother dies, dog is runs out, so he's closer to the church, faces the spot that he's buried, and starts barking. And then the next day, the kid is dead. Now, this might be a language thing that back then it wouldn't be suspicious that this sounds like the kid was buried, the dog barked, and then the kid died because he was buried alive. So I kind of think that this person who wrote in is just like admitting to serial killing his whole family. Also, not a question. There was no question in there. He was just letting everybody know that his dog is psychic in that he knows that people who are buried will die. Okay. So this one is a hypothetical. If I'm thinking of committing any great and enormous crime or sin, such as, I don't know, adultery, but do not personally or actually commit it, am I guilty of the crime and sin? So this would be one of those philosophy questions, I guess. Is considering committing a crime the same as committing a crime? No. It might be a different crime depending on what you do with those thoughts. Like if you put them on the internet that you want to murder someone, and especially like if you get specific with it, or if you like threaten a particular public place, like even though you haven't actually done it yet, you can still get in trouble for putting it out there that you're thinking about doing it. But it would, I'm not a lawyer, so consult a lawyer if you're thinking of committing a crime before you put it on Twitter. But I'm pretty sure it would be classified as a different crime than had you actually gone through with it. Now, speaking of sin, that is less of a legal matter and, you know, more of a what is sin kind of thing. So there's a lot of different philosophies on this. One of the problems with answering this is, unlike crime, where you can have different levels and different kinds of crime, some people believe that all sin is equal. Whether I tell my friend, oh yeah, no, that just doesn't make you look fat at all, and then but it actually kind of does a little bit, or if I go and like murder someone, in the eyes of God, some people think that those two things are equal. Now, other people think that there's a difference between, call them little sin and big sin. I don't remember. I can't edit this part out. I want to look it up. Cardinal sins or mortal sins. Okay. Oh no. So in the Catholic Church specifically, there are things that are known as cardinal sins or mortal sins that would be the big ones. And so if you're thinking of committing a cardinal sin, would that be the same as committing a cardinal sin? I don't think so. And now, personally, if I believe that, if we're going to say sin is real, and we're going to say that God is real, I don't think that God would consider thoughts as sin. I think that in order for it to become a sin, you need to act on it, or speak it into existence in some way. So, or encouraging another person to do a sin, even though you're not the one that's doing it, I think that that would still be classified as sinful behavior. Now, what classifies as a sin, and whether there are big sins and little sins, I don't know. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of sin? Okay. Is it proper for women to be learned? No. Well, okay, there are two ways that you could read this question. Is it proper for women to be learned? Like, should women know things? Science and philosophy and whatnot? Or you could read it as, is it proper for women to be learned? Should someone be able to learn about women, or a woman in particular? Is it okay for me or a person that is interested in a woman to learn as much as they can about her so that they can love her to her fullest extent? What does proper mean? You know? This is the problem with videos instead of newspapers, is I can make this video as long as I want. YouTube does not care anymore. Okay. This is the next question. Don't make me spill the wine again. Okay. Okay, you can be cute. Okay. What is the cause of the winds, and whence do they come, and whither do they go? Well, here's the thing. Sometimes they come from over there, sometimes they come from over there, and then they just like go to the other place. Now, what causes the wind? I don't know. Google it, man. It's probably like particles in the air having too much energy or not enough energy, and transferring that energy between each other, and then also something to do with the moon and gravity. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. Why are you asking me this? Gosh. Okay. Oh. Here we go. Why does leaning on the elbow and compressing the external corner of the right eye cause objects to appear duplicated? So this person has found a way to make double vision. Let's see. Leaning. I don't know if I'm supposed to lean on the left elbow or the right elbow. And also, did this person wear glasses? Because I'm wearing glasses. It's not very scientific. Okay, so leaning and compressing. It's not working. Let's try it without glasses. Leaning and compressing. Should I be looking at things close to me or far away? Oh, it's kind of working. So why does that happen? Because I don't think that you need to be leaning on the side of your elbow. I think that you're just distorting the shape of one of your eyes, and when you distort the shape of one of them, they no longer focus together on a particular object, and so then that causes the object to be overlaid on itself. But I don't know, I'm not a scientist. You guys also get to hear how many like sniffles I normally have to cut out. And it's mostly just because it's really dry in Wisconsin. I have a humidifier, but not in this room. Okay. See, oh, we're close to the end. If the light of the moon is barred from the sun, why are they so differing in complexion? Look, I don't know your name, guy from 1690, or girl, but I'm gonna assume your name's Bartholomew. Bartholomew, you can't just ask somebody why their complexion's different. That's racist. Dancing, is it lawful? No, but thinking about it is. What is anger? Anger is when you feel like you've got like this really cute outfit and this really cute idea for a video, and just like the perfect way to execute it, and how you're not gonna edit any of it, and then not even like 2 minutes into the not edited portion, one of your cats makes you spill wine all over yourself, and then you have to like figure out what you're gonna do. I'm just kidding. I wasn't angry. I can't be angry at you. Where did you even go? I was just kidding, Fortune. I'm not angry. Hmm. She'll come back. Oh no, another question about the moon. Why don't moonbeams convey warmth as the sunbeams do? Bartholomew, stop being racist. People of all complexions can be equally warm and loving, and you just gotta give them a chance and get to know them. Unless you're actually talking about the sun and the moon, in which case it probably has something to do with the fact that photons aren't the same as heat. So the photons are what get reflected off of the moon back to you, whereas the heat, I think, is traveling in a different way. Although, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not a scientist. Oh, Fortune, you trust me again? Okay, well, you're about to not trust me. Okay, you ready? What's love? Love is a cat keeping you warm at night. Let's try that again. What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more. What is love but an ever-changing thing that alters when it alteration finds? See, if I was allowing myself to edit right now, I would be looking up a little bit more of that quote so that I could sound like I had more of it memorized. That's it. That's all I have memorized with that bit. Let's see. What's love got to do with it? And other pop culture references. The final question. Wow, this is exciting. This is from King Lear. Are you okay, darling? I don't know how much you can see of what she's doing. She's being a little silly. Okay. Is there, do you think, a large part of the world still left to discover? Yes. But I also think that since they didn't specify what they meant by world, I'm not just thinking about Earth. I think that anywhere that humans could potentially discover counts. So planets, other solar systems, other galaxies are all out there for us to discover. Also, most of the ocean floor, who knows what's down there. And that's it for questions from the first advice column. Now, if you'd like to hear me answer more questions from old advice columns, let me know down below or like this video and I'll do that. The idea for this video, I was originally gonna try and find some advice column questions from like the 60s. So much more recent. And then I just kind of went on a rabbit hole about advice columns and how they evolved into podcasts today. So yeah, like this video if you liked it, subscribe for whatever I feel like making a video about next, and leave a comment answering whichever of those questions you would like to answer. Obviously, we have changed some since back then, but also not that much. It's just that a lot of people will try Google first these days. Alright, I love you. Sweet dreams. Good night.